Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of 100 Yards of Football. This is the NFL show, the edition that we are going to talk about the National Football League, along with Logan Landers, who's our producer and engineer. Our co-host and founder is Vincent Turner. And Vincent, another great week of NFL football coming up. We've got playoff implications. Obviously, they're just 3 weeks away, but some of the big ball games, and we're going to go over a couple of them today. But first, your thoughts, anything that happened last week or anything that you're looking forward to. There's a lot of situations. That Devondre Campbell situation is one of them. We're going to see some coaches that may get fired over the next couple of weeks, or certainly on Black Monday. But give me your thoughts first and foremost to where we are with the NFL right now.
Well, I'm going to start here locally. The Atlanta Falcons, I think, made the biggest news on Tuesday, which was yesterday, announcing Michael Penix Jr. being the starting quarterback. Now, hopefully, it's the right move at the right time. The Falcons are one game back from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And my only other opinion is, I know a lot of people are talking about Josh Allen getting the MVP votes for the Buffalo Bills. But, man, I'm going to tell you, Boomer, Sooner, Baker Mayfield, right now, at this present time, if I had to have a vote, he would be my MVP this year in the National Football League. Back to you, Harper.
Really? You wouldn't give it to Lamar? We'll talk about Lamar in just a second. His numbers are amazing. You got Baker?
His numbers are amazing, but look what Baker Mayfield has done in Tampa.
Here's what I like.
Go ahead.
What Baker has impressed me with is deep balls, hitting guys when they're open, yards after catch, and he's running to the line of scrimmage. He's running to go give somebody a high five. Maybe not on every single play, but he looks determined, and he's got the eye of the tiger in a way that I think it's just absolutely outstanding if you're a Bucs fan. Watching this guy develop and turn into a guy. Yeah, Brady won a Super Bowl for you a couple years ago, but who's going to be that next guy? I think Baker is primed and ready for that. I really am impressed with the way that he is developed as a human being and a quarterback and a leader of this team. He's no bigger than a post. He's a little guy, but strong arm and exemplifying the type of leadership, in my opinion, that a team like Tampa Bay absolutely needs at this time. So
I like guys.
Please go ahead.
I like guys that have adversity and bounce back. Think about it. He was drafted number 1 overall by Cleveland a couple of seasons ago. Things didn't work out. Cleveland got rid of him. He went to Carolina. They didn't want him. He went out to L.A. He played the last 5 games of the regular season. We went 2 and 3 as a starting quarterback with the Rams. He went to Tampa. A lot of people were saying he was a journeyman and he's going to be out of the league in a couple more seasons. Because let's be honest, we didn't think he was going to make it in Tampa. Yep. But look what he's done with that football team. And this year, he hasn't had Mike Evans for a long period of time. He had him last week, and you saw what happened. Yep. He's done it with a rookie running back in Bucky Irvin out of the University of Oregon. His receiving core has been Mr. Jalen McMillan out of Washington and Sterling Shepard, who's a former New York Giants pick. And he's done all that. And look what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are. They are top of the NFC South. They lost 2 real competitive games against the Atlanta Falcons now. Them 2 games could have went either way. But I just like his story, his determination, as you just said, Hart. Granted, Lamar Jackson is putting up numbers. Granted, Josh Allen has played at a high level. But if you want to be serious in your heart, who's been the most MVP this season for his team? It's been Baker Mayfield. And he lost Chris Godwin, who's a very good receiver. Yep. And he saved Todd Bowles' job. Back to you, Harper.
Yeah. Hey, things that you like about it. Do you like 40 points? Vincent, do you like 40 points a ball game?
Yes,
He's averaging 28.8 right now, which is fine and dandy, but he gets you 40 last week against the number 1 defense in the Chargers in the league right there.
Point. That's my
point. They lose 4 in a row. They lose to the Ravens, Atlanta, Kansas City, and San Francisco, and then they've turned around and they've won 4 in a row. Now, granted, it's against the Giants, the Panthers, and the Raiders. That's 3 of the 4. So, but that Chargers victory last week put them, in my opinion, back up where they need to be. And again, a half a game ahead of the Falcons because of the tiebreaker. Yes, it appears like it's 1 full game, but if they were to tie at the end of the season, the Falcons would actually be division champs because of the tiebreaker that they would have. in winning both of those games head to head. So Tampa has at Cowboys, then they got 2 home games against Carolina and the Saints. So it looks pretty good. They win this week against Dallas. In my opinion, they've got the best chance of anybody to win the division. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. For first, let's look at another interdivision. Well, let's look at the AFC West. You've got the Denver Broncos, who, surprise, surprise, who would have thought that the Denver Broncos would be 9-5 at this point in the year, going against the LA Chargers, who, surprise, surprise, they're 8-6. Last year, they're picking 5th in the draft. The Broncos aren't much better, and both of them right now are in the playoffs. Were it today. Give me your thoughts here on this game that will be on Thursday, tomorrow night at 8:15 on Prime Tick or Prime Channel. Prime Video is what it's actually called. Why don't I call it the correct thing? Vincent, your thoughts here about this first game?
I'm going to start with the Denver Broncos. I got to give respect to Sean Payton. I thought he was a little kind of hard on Russell Wilson, how he handled the situation. Russell had to leave out of that organization, and it was basically because Sean Payton didn't want him. He took a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix. Bo Nix, as you mentioned earlier on one of our podcasts, he had an up and down career in college. Auburn, up and down. He got out to Oregon, played very good football this last year out there. And I was kind of having mixed feelings. How would Bo Nix do at the next level? Well, look at the Denver Broncos. They're 9-5 and they playoff worthy. But the most important thing about the Broncos, we could talk about their offense, but it's been their defense. Kudos to you, Mr. Vance Joseph. Patrick Surtain might need to get votes for Defensive Player of the Year. Nick B, I'm not going to butcher his last name. He might need to get Defensive Player votes for the year. Now to the LA Chargers. But we're singing praise to Jim Harbaugh, about a month ago? Number 1 defense, a team that's really made a tremendous turnaround from last year. But last week, I wonder is Mr. Harbaugh saying now, who got it good as we do? Because Baker Mayfield and Tampa Bay did not punt in 10 possessions. The Buccaneers put 40 points on your number 1 defense. And you gave up over 150 yards rushing. And Justin Herbert is playing, I want to say, average. He's not putting up the numbers. To me, you got to take the rims off Justin Herbert and start letting him throw the football a little bit more. And your offense has got to get creative more, Mr. Harbaugh. Because now you at the end of the season, it's playoff football now. And if Tampa Bay didn't show you that last week coming into your place and beating you 40-17, maybe you need to go back to Michigan. Back to you, Harp.
Well, the interesting thing, they played earlier in the year. They played in Denver, and the Chargers end up winning that ball game. But 8-6, they're good. They're in the playoffs, like I said, but they've got some weaknesses. They're only getting 21 points a game. They're averaging 21, and their defense is number 1. But guess what? Denver's defense right at the same number. So they're both tied, really, if you want to look at it that perspective. Ladd McConkey's been a stud. I'm very impressed with him. But Justin Herbert, 2,959 yards, 16 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's the thing. He's protecting the ball, but he has 38 sacks this year. That's one of the things that has me very interested in wondering whether or not this team has the ability to surpass what Kansas City's got going right now. And I'd have to say no. Neither one. They're close, but they don't have the ability. I don't think if they played in the playoff game against Kansas City and Arrowhead, they'd have a chance to win. But 9-5, Denver ends up going against the LA Chargers. Prime Video, 8:15 on Thursday night. That's our first game here that we're going to look at. The next game is a Saturday game. Now that the college season is over, there's going to be 2 games on Saturdays that you'll get a chance to watch. And the first one that is of interest to me is obviously a AFC North. You got Pittsburgh at 10-4. They are in first place against second place 9-5 Baltimore. This has all the wrappings for being a late playoff. This could be a championship game. We get to see them. They play each other twice anyways, but this one here in Baltimore, 9-5. What are you thinking first and foremost, Vincent, about the Ravens?
Lamar Jackson, you brought him up seconds ago about being in MVP conversation. No question about it. Last week against the Giants, he was 21 out of 25, 84% for the game. Well, he had 5 touchdowns, correct? 290 yards passing. Derrick Henry had 67 yards on the ground. There's no question about it. Lamar Jackson should be considered for MVP votes. And we know this. When he plays well, the Ravens are very good. So I'm looking at the Steelers. You know how the Ravens and Steelers play. It's physical football. You throw out all the records. You throw out all everything else. It's going to be a hard-hitting game. The only thing I got about Pittsburgh last week is what happened to your offense. You only had 163 yards total offense against the Eagles last week, and Russell only had 128 yards through the air. So I'm going to call this for the Pittsburgh Steelers a bounce-back week. Bounce-back week. Get it together, Mr. Mike Tomlin. Back to you, Harper.
Here's what Pittsburgh has on their schedule afterwards. They got to go to Kansas City and then against Cincinnati. On the other side, Houston and Cleveland await Baltimore after this one. Baltimore's offense, they're the top 3 in every category, passing, rushing, and scoring. They average 29 points a game. And is Derrick Henry the most silent 1,600-yard rusher you've ever heard of before? It's amazing how nobody's talking about him. Saquon, yeah, is getting a lot of pub. Good for him. But 13 touchdowns for Derrick Henry. I still love you. I think you're amazing. I know I wouldn't want to have to tackle you when you're coming full speed. So those are a couple of the things that I have right now. Very interesting ball game because it could go either way for Pittsburgh. They've played well with Russell, and then they kind of struggled last week. If they struggle again, will the Boo Birds come out? And could we see Justin Fields? I don't think so, but at least that's a possibility. People are changing quarterbacks. Talk about that with some Falcon fans. But here's a game, 4:30 on Saturday, the first of 2 really good Saturday games, and we'll be paying attention to that one. The next one, let's go to Sunday. We'll be talking about a 1 o'clock kick. And here you got the 12-2 Philadelphia Eagles going to Washington to take on the 9-5 Commanders. 10 wins in a row for Philadelphia. Vincent, is there anything right now that can stop the Eagles except maybe the Eagles?
A couple of weeks ago, even last week, we was talking about Detroit being the best team in the NFC. Obviously, myself personally, I need to change my opinion on that. It's no question about it right now. If you want to talk Super Bowl, you want teams that can get there, the Philadelphia Eagles are at the top of my list. So over there in Philly, you might want to start getting your reservations for New Orleans in February. The only thing I take about from the Eagles, defensively, the Georgia boys are playing well. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, N'Kobe Dean, Nolan Smith. Dog Nation has got their defense playing at a high level. And when I look at last week's game, Jalen Hurts, 290 yards in the air, 2 touchdowns. A.J. Brown, 8 receptions, 110 yards, and 1 touchdown. So nice. Everybody happy in Philly now? Are you happy, AJ?
No.
Are you happy, AJ?
No, we're not happy. No one's happy in Philadelphia.
Because you're winning, and you beat the Steelers 27-13. You're winning. So AJ Brown, you from the state of Mississippi, baby. Are you happy? Stop complaining, brother. It's about winning. It's about the ring. Now to the Washington Commanders. Harper, I'm going to tell you honestly, Dan Quinn has did an outstanding job over there with a rookie quarterback. I did not believe that. I didn't believe I would be seeing that. And I didn't believe that Jaden Daniels would come in and be the best rookie quarterback in the league right now. I had put all my marbles on Caleb Williams. Jaden Daniels, 266 yards last week, 1 touchdown, in a very critical game against New Orleans Saints. They got up, I believe, 16-0 in that football game. They had to hold on to win that game down the stretch, 20-19. So the Eagles have won 10 in a row. They've really, look what they did against the Ravens a couple weeks ago. Got physical with them, won that football game. Look what they did with the Steelers last week. Got physical, won that football game. It's a more important game for the Commanders just to see whether or not they're going to be competitive and how they play out worthy. That's what I want to see. But right now, when I'm going to take out of this game, the Eagles are playing high. And so everybody in Philadelphia, are you going to be happy? Back to you, Harp.
One thing about the Commanders that really has impressed me, they're number 3 in the league in rushing. I wouldn't have thought that, but Jaden Daniels is able with his legs to do so much more to keep the offense moving. In addition to obviously what he's able to do with his arm. His arm speaks for itself. 3,045 yards. Congratulations on that. You'll be about 36,700, somewhere in that range at the end of the year. 17 touchdowns, only 6 picks, so you're protecting the ball. You got 2 games left. You play the Falcons, and then you got to go to Dallas. So you got a chance. You win this game here, you may win 12 games. You could tie where Philadelphia is right now. But if nothing else, you set yourself up for a great seed and possible for the playoffs to put yourself in position to be where you need to be. So congratulations to Dan Quinn. You're 6th in the league in scoring. Defensively, you got 35 sacks. Dante Fowler is having a great year, 8.5 sacks for him. Washington, I would think it'd be an upset to win this game at home. But nonetheless, you've got all the tools in place, in my opinion, to be able to make that happen. Saquon Barkley over on the Eagles side, what can you say? 11 touchdowns, 1,688 yards right now, 285 carries. So by the end of this ball game, he'll have more than 300 carries, and that's a lot. That's by far more than anybody else has got right now. But guess what? It's working, and you're scoring a lot. So you're number 1 in rushing in the league. You're number 8 in scoring, and your defense is also number 1 at 17 points a game. So Philadelphia at this time last year, they were struggling mightily just to make it into the playoffs. They kind of backed into it. They're not letting that happen this year. So I think they've turned a lot of things around. Very interesting ball game. Again, it's at 1 o'clock on Sunday, and I'll be tuned into that one for sure. A 4 o'clock game features the Minnesota Vikings. They're 12-2. Vincent, would you have thought the Vikings at this point last year, with quarterback problems and all the other things that are going on, would be going against a Seattle team that's 8-6? But Minnesota right now, they are 8th in passing in the league. They're 15th in rushing. They're 8th in scoring, but their defense is what's impressing me right now. They're 4th in the league. They're only giving up 18 points a game. Tell me more about what the Minnesota Vikings are doing right now that's put an impression on you.
I'm going to tell you this. When you look at the Vikings, I'm going to start with a cliche. Southern California, San Diego State, Kevin O'Connell. If he's not the best coach right now in the National Football League, I don't know what we're looking at. Let's go back to last year when he won with Josh Dobbs under the center. Let's go back to last year when he won with Josh Dobbs. He comes into this year and he loses his quarterback who he took first overall in J.J. McCartney.
Yep.
And they take another Southern California guy from the mighty USC Trojans and Sam Darnold, who flamed out in New York, who flamed out in Carolina. And to be honest, if we want to talk about MVP votes, Sam Darnold has to be up there at the list. Then I look at what Kevin O'Connell did in free agency. Green Bay, I don't know what y'all thinking about. Maybe I need to have my head checked to be for insanity. Y'all let Aaron Jones leave? 86 yards last week on Monday Night Football. And then y'all get Jonathan Greenard from the Houston Texans. Young man from Hiram, Georgia, 12 miles from where I live right now. And he's got 9 sacks on the year. And then Brian Flores, as you said, Hop, got that defense number 4. What total? Kevin O'Connell. I don't know what they doing in Minnesota with that water or with that snow. But right now, I'm very impressed with him as a head coach, man. And he was the offensive coordinator. I didn't know when the Rams won the Super Bowl. But the most important thing I gained respect from him was 2 weeks ago when they played the Indianapolis Colts. Game over with. He went up to Anthony Richardson. And he told him, I heard it on YouTube, you're going to be a player in this league, man. You young, you got talent. Just stay the focus and listen to your coaches. That touched my heart right there. So Southern California in the house today. The young man outside of San Diego, by way of San Diego State. The young man in front of me, Southern California, the land of Hollywood. Kevin O'Connell is doing his thing in Minnesota. Now to the Seattle Seahawks. Kudos to Mike McDonald. Again, another surprise. I didn't think the Seahawks would be 8-6 with Geno Smith at the quarterback position. I'm sorry, but I got to go there. But Geno has played very well. He only had 149 yards last week against the Green Bay Packers, and that's why they lost the game. So it's all about Geno Smith, man. He has to play well if the Seahawks are going to continue in this playoff mix as we talk about them being a playoff team. Back to you, Harp.
Yeah, one thing about Geno in that game last week against Green Bay, got hit real low. His knee appears to be okay. It'll be a game time decision. He's doubtful right at the moment, but he's been practicing. So I'm going to say if there's a way to make it happen. Geno's a tough dude now. Full respect to Geno and all that he's done. If you look at the numbers offensively, they're fifth in the league in terms of passing. Geno's already got 3,600 yards, 14 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. That's the part that really concerns me if I'm a Seahawk fan. And he's been sacked 43 times so far. So the pass protection, the offensive line has been a little bit weaker than normal. But the Seahawks at 8-6 really need to win this game, keep the distance from the others in the NFC West. Their final two games, they got to go to Chicago, so they're going to have to deal with the cold there, and then they've got to go to the Rams and play in SoFi Stadium there in Southern California. But interesting team now. You lose DK Metcalf, and then Jackson Smith, Njimba. That dude can play. 85 receptions for him, 994 yards, so he'll surpass 1,000 with at least his first catch, maybe take two. But congratulations to him. He's having a fantastic year, but so are the Vikings. So I think the Vikings go into Seattle and get a road win there that they desperately need to stay in touch with Detroit, who, by the way, we should be talking about Detroit. We're not going to do it this week. We're going to pick another game. But Detroit, with all the injuries that they're having, Vincent, real quick, we would comment on that. They had 14 guys 2 weeks ago. They lose David Montgomery and another defensive starter. My goodness, what more do you have to do in Detroit to be able to stay on the field?
I mean, when you're playing this game and you're playing at a high level, you can't continuously lose players at that alarming rate. Detroit, they played well all year. They've been one of the most physical teams in the league, but let's be realistic here. Detroit is taking a step back, man, from a defensive standpoint. I think they had like 7 defensive starters out at one time and another, and then they lost 3 players last week, 3 critical players: Carlton Davis, David Montgomery, Aleen McNeil. You don't replace players like that, and especially this time of year. Detroit has got a real serious haul, man, to just stay healthy and even be competitive in the playoffs. I'm hoping right now that they can get a first-round bye. But look what happened last week against Buffalo. They lost a very competitive game, and they lost it because they gave up, 48 points to Buffalo.
Yep.
So they're reeling, man.
Yeah, they're struggling a little bit there. 48-42 was the final. They go to Chicago this week. They'll be playing at San Francisco against the 49ers next week. And then their home finale is against these same Vikings that we're talking about right now. So they are in first place right now, but they are tied, and things could happen because of the injuries. Thank goodness Jared Goff is having such a good season. But Detroit, which is a Super Bowl favorite, at least from the NFC side, they're not struggling right now. They're still winning, but they're doing it with as my dad would say, with duct tape and baling wire. They're just trying to stick things together to see what works. But we weren't going to visit that game. They play Chicago this week. What we want to do is talk about 2 teams that we haven't talked about all year, and that is Jacksonville with their 3-win record going to Las Vegas against the 2-win Raiders. How the mighty have fallen, Vincent. But the reason that this game is intriguing to me is twofold. One, we haven't talked about these games. We probably won't again, unless if the Raiders win this game, they have 2 wins, and so do the Giants. And if the Giants beat Atlanta, then there'll be a quadri of 5 teams, 6 teams that have 3 wins, all vying for who picks first in the draft. But 3 wins against 2 wins. I know there's not a whole heck of a lot going on here, but just to give you an idea of what's going on in Jacksonville, they can't operate on Trevor Lawrence yet because he's in concussion protocol. They have to wait for him to be cleared so that he can go get his knee scoped and possible anterior crucia ligament damage. But what a mess, right? You can't even go in and operate on the guy because he got dinged up so badly that you have to delay that. That to me just reeks of so many problems that are taken on. Let's take the Jaguars first at 3-12. What's your thoughts here going on in Jacksonville?
Oh man, awful year. Expectations at the start of the season, we thought they was going to be at least a playoff team. Trevor Lawrence, it hasn't gone well this season for him. I had him one of the can't miss prospects coming into this league. And when they hired Doug Peterson, remember, I believe it was the first year, did they get to the playoffs under him? I'm trying to think. But I said, man, this is a perfect match. He's won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, coming over to Jacksonville. Young football team, seamless, drafted real well. Trayvon Walker, the Campbell young man playing the cornerback position. Trevor Etienne. I thought this Jacksonville team, they had talent that we can be talking about them in the mix in the playoffs. But this year it's went off the haywire. And I guess the only thing when I look at Jacksonville is this. Matt Jones played well last week. 31 of 46, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. What you going to do with him? Because at the season end, we don't know what's going on with Trevor Lawrence. Matt Jones is going to want to go somewhere and be a starter. Yep. And Doug Peterson is going to definitely get fired at the end of the year. And you got an owner who likes to play games over in England and Germany 2 or 3 times a year. And he think about taking the league over there and making an international game. But first of all, what's your name, Mr. Khan? I think that's your name. You got to win games first in your home base in Jacksonville. And if I'm thinking Jacksonville's not going to play in their home stadium because they're getting a new stadium built, right? So they're going to be playing their home games in Orlando somewhere the next 2 seasons. Now to the Raiders. I asked our producer, the great mind of Logan Landers, who's a Raiders fan. And before we came on, I said, hey, man, is Antonio Pierce going to be the coach next year? Watching Desmond Ridder play last Monday night with the Raiders, he was 23-39 for 208 yards and 1 touchdown. And watching that Raiders football team, Harper, I'm going to be honest. I asked myself, had the Raiders failed this far below, I want to say, worse than I ever seen the Raiders football team at this level. It was hard to watch. Hard. And I sat there and I have not watched a football game from the first play to the last play. In that Raiders organization, you got to be thinking, who's going to be the coach next year? Do we bring Antonio Pierce back? I like him. He had some juice last year taking over. But I think you need to go with somebody from an offensive standpoint, since you're talking about taking a quarterback. Now, my question to you, Harper, and I'm going to turn it back to you. Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward? I've been going back and forth with this in my mind for the last week. If I got the number 1 pick, if I'm the Giants or who I'm the Raiders, who you taking? Shedeur or Cam Ward? And I've been watching a lot of Colorado Buffaloes film over the last 3 weeks and a lot of University of Miami film over the last 3 weeks. So I'm going to give it back to you, the very title, Harper LeBel. The Raiders, whoever ends up with the number 1 pick, say the Giants or the Raiders, who are you taking at the quarterback position? Because both organizations need a quarterback.
Well, I agree with you. If Trevor's hurt, then absolutely that's going to be an issue for them. My question to you would be, well, it doesn't matter who you take because you can't protect your quarterback. You have $35 million. You're 4th in the league in terms of the amount of cash that you have right now. You better get me a left tackle or a right tackle and a Pro Bowl type center. I need those to at least begin wondering, how am I going to fix some of my problems? You just add one guy and to the amount of problems that you have, you're still going to have, a bunch that you need to address. So the good news for the Raiders is they got some money to be able to fix a few of those problems, but is Vegas the place to do that? It's still a new facility. It's brand new, and the environment, you get a guy was suspended just yesterday for the league substance abuse policy. It's a tough place, in my opinion, to keep the focus with a young guy that doesn't have a whole lot of discipline in his life. So there's many more issues between just the quarterback that I would have to address. The fact that you're picking so high in the draft is a big problem for me, especially from the Raider Nation fan. It's hard to see the guy who's got the face paint and the spikes coming out of his shoulder pads leaving a ball game with 12 losses, 13, 14 they may end up losing this year. That's just tough to see. These are the folks that when I went there, we played in the Oakland Coliseum. I went out for early outs as a snapper, and we kicked the ball, and the net wasn't up, and the ball goes into the stands. And I look at one of the fans, hey, can't get the ball back. And the guy's giving me the bird. He's telling me where to go. He goes, you're not getting this ball back. And we snapped another, and we stopped doing it. We had to wait for the net. We actually went back to the 40-yard line to start kicking because there's no way. Raider Nation, that's what you guys are. That's what you do, especially to a visiting team. So I'm well aware of a lot of the things that they do in terms of their fandom. But to see the sign when you watch that game, hey, tank and lose, we want the number one pick. Gosh, that's a far cry from what I remember. But this game here, two teams that are as inept as you can get right now. 18 points a game for Jacksonville. They're 26 in the league, but they give up 26. So there's a 8-point differential for them. And with the Raiders, they only score 17 a game, so they're even worse. And they also give up 26 points a ball game. Between the two, the Raiders defense is a little bit better. They've got 32 sacks. They've got 8 interceptions and 1 fumble recovery. Only 26 sacks for Jacksonville, 5 interceptions for them. So Desmond Ridder does have a chance to start again. Gardner Minshew's out for obviously the rest of the year, so he's got a chance to do some things. Brock Bowers has had an outstanding year. He's got 90 receptions right now with 3 games to play. I think he'll break 100, so congratulations to the young man, the rookie out of Georgia. He'll have over 1,000 yards receiving as well. He's got 968 right now. Mac Jones, the job is yours, my friend, until things get better. But you might be interviewing for other jobs by showing how well you play right now. You're 65% in terms of your completions. You have a little over 1,000 yards right now in 7 games. You've got 4 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Turn that around, young man, and you got a chance to be a player with another organization. But before we leave, Vincent, any final thoughts that you have with some of the other games or other teams or things that you would want to be paying attention to that's going on this week here in the National Football League?
Well, of course, the Dallas-Tampa Bay game, simply because I want to see how well Tampa Bay continues their rise. I think Tampa Bay, if they win in the NFC South, they're going to be a team that I want to see in the playoffs. And, of course, the Dallas Cowboys. 6-8. I didn't think they'd win another game with Cooper Rush at the quarterback position. Just want to see how he develops and what it's going to be in Dallas in the offseason. Other than that, we got some great games. It's winding down. Now you're seeing teams that's kind of separating themselves from the pack. In Detroit, I really feel sorry for the organization with all the injuries they've had. I just don't think they can hang on with so many people out. And I think when we look at it, I'm going to say it again. The young man from Southern California, Kevin O'Connell, is my man for the Coach of the Year. What he's done in Minnesota, along with Brian Flores, has been really remarkable and really respectable. The young man, Mr. O'Connell, is taking Sam Darnold, and he's playing at a Pro Bowl level. And I'm going to tell you this. Minnesota could get the number 1 seed in the NFC. Yeah. And you know what? Minnesota. We're talking about all these other teams, Kansas City, Buffalo. But I'm going to tell you this. That might be a Super Bowl team that gets to New Orleans. Back to you, Harp.
Yeah, they've got a tough road to hoe, but if they do it, they will have earned it. They've got Green Bay and then at Detroit as part of their next 2 games after the Seattle game here this week. Let's take a real quick look at the leaders in each division. You got the Rams and the Seahawks both at 8-6 in the NFC West. Tampa is leading in the NFC South. They're 8-6. Detroit and Minnesota are tied at 12-2. So one of them is going to win that division, right? The one that doesn't will be in the playoffs. And oddly enough, Green Bay at 10-4. Right now, 3 teams in that division will make the playoffs were the season to end right now. 12-2 is the Philadelphia Eagles. They are leaders in the NFC East. And of course, the game that they have this weekend against Washington, they're 9-5, guys. A win here right now, 10 wins. They'll make the playoffs. They may not be able to win the division, but at least they've got a chance. Kansas City at 13-1. What can we say? Chiefs just being the Chiefs. In the AFC South, Texas is still ahead. The Texans are ahead at 9-5. Pittsburgh is ahead in the AFC North. 10-4 is where they are, but right on their tail is Baltimore. We mentioned that game just a little while ago. And then Buffalo with a commanding lead. They've already clinched winning the division. They're 11-3. The next closest team is the Miami Dolphins at 6-8. So, Vincent, that's a quick look at the overall standings. We'll be going over those as the season progresses, but we've got Saturday games, you got Thursday games, you got Sunday games. What more could you want if you're an NFL fan?
It's an exciting time, man. If you're a football fan, all I can recommend is that this Saturday, you go get you a place, whether it's in your house, whether it's in your room, in your, what they say, man cave, or else you want to go out and go to Buffalo Wild Wings and be around other fans who are going to be in there cheering their teams. Hey, enjoy and drink a margarita for me, because it's going to be a hell of a weekend watching football.
Well, this is an NFL show, but obviously, folks, there's a tremendous amount of college and in high school championships were last week. So that's done. But now we've got the college, the playoff going on, bowl games everywhere. As we said on the college show a little bit earlier, guys, get your honey-do list taken care of, earn your brownie points so that you're able to watch games this weekend, or at least view portions of it while you're putting up Christmas lights or wrapping packages, doing other things like that. But enjoy regardless. So for our producer and engineer, Logan Landers, I'm Harper LeBel. For our co-founder and host, Vincent Turner, we want to say thank you for tuning in. This has been 100 Yards of Football. This is the NFL edition. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a fantastic day.